everyone, and welcome to week 1 of the Natural Grocers live Keto Reset class series. My name is Erin Dahl, and I am the Senior Nutrition Education Specialist here at Natural Grocers, and I will be your host throughout our series. We are so excited to have you join us today and are thrilled to kick off this 4-week program, which is based off of Mark Sisson's The Keto Reset Diet book and led by our very own nutritional health coaches, or NHCs. So throughout the program, our NHCs will be teaching you about the benefits of supporting a healthy metabolism through lifestyle habits and a paleo primal, as well as keto way of eating. So get excited because we've got a jam-packed 4 weeks full of fun, educational, and inspiring content. Just a few announcements before we dive in today. There will be a live Q&A panel immediately following the class, so be sure to stick around for that if you'd like to have your questions answered. And if you'd like to submit a question, please do so in the chat pane provided. All questions will be held until the end and asked during our Q&A session. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. I actually have the pleasure of introducing you to our presenter this week, which is Marmar Atala. He is the nutritional health coach at our Columbia, Missouri location. Marmar graduated from the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, with a Bachelor's of Science degree in nutrition and exercise physiology. Prior to becoming a nutritional health coach, he worked for Natural Grocers and as a personal trainer, helping people with another aspect of health, which is exercise. He believes in the powerful connection between nutrition and exercise in achieving vibrant health, and he's also passionate about empowering others to make better choices to live a healthier lifestyle. Marmar, we're so excited to have you today. Thank you so much for guiding us through week 1, and please go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Erin. Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us today. Like Erin mentioned, I am Marmar Atala, nutritional health coach here at Natural Grocers. And today we will be introducing the Metabolism Reset and Ketogenic Diet, covering chapters 1 through 6 in the Keto Reset Diet book by Mark Sisson. Today you'll learn how to shift your metabolism to use more fat for energy and reap the benefits of becoming metabolically flexible, which is key for long-term health. I feel like at this point, you, your friend, or someone you know have tried the ketogenic diet. That's how popular the ketogenic diet is. So here at Natural Grocers, you know, we hear so much misinformation about the ketogenic diet. So we've developed the Keto Reset program, where you'll have the guidance and the support of our knowledgeable health coaches to provide you, who will provide you with the right information to be successful and do it in a healthy way. But before we start, a quick disclaimer. This class is not intended to diagnose, treat, or mitigate any disease. Dietary supplements and foods can interact with prescription medications. If you are taking a prescription medication, please become informed about the possible interactions. So I have worked for Natural Grocers for over 5 years now, and I'm really proud of our 5 founding principles. The focus on nutrition education, like we're doing today, providing free health coaching services nearly at every store in our company, and the commitment to stocking the highest quality product and really keeping it affordable for everyone. And the dedication to supporting our local communities through bag-free checkouts and donating to the local food banks and supporting our great employees. Now, before we jump into talking about metabolic flexibility, first, let's talk about what does it feel like to be metabolically inflexible? Who here doesn't struggle with brain fog, excessive and chronic fatigue, metabolic issues like weight gain, and memory issues? If you do, don't worry. A healthy diet may be able to help you to help support these problems, but maybe not the typical healthy diet you're thinking of. But see, it's not your fault. It was the original diet advice that told us that we need to regularly consume glucose for energy, which has become a deeply ingrained myth in our society today. This is a big reason why, if we look at our food pyramid, we have carbohydrates at the base of the pyramid telling us to consume 6 to 11 servings a day, and fats at the top of the pyramid asking us to use sparingly. But the truth is, most long-term, low-fat, high-carb diets prevent healthy mitochondrial function, which negatively impacts our metabolism and contributes to disease, things like insulin resistance. And the traditional weight loss advice suggests that all you need to do is count calories, eat less, and exercise more, which simply isn't sustainable. And while calories do matter, we have to understand that different calories from different food sources actually affects our metabolism in different ways. For example, a calorie from a Pop-Tart is not equivalent to a calorie from an apple, right? And we have the evidence today to back this up. Currently, 2/3 of our population is overweight, half of our population is pre-diabetic, diabetic, or suffers some form of chronic illness, and 1 in 3 women and half of all men will develop some form of cancer in their lifetime. This idea that fats are evil led to the overconsumption of refined carbohydrates in the form of processed grains and sugars that lack fiber and other nutrients like vitamins and minerals that support our health. And if we rely on exercise alone, it just cannot compensate for the damage done by a high-carb, low-fat diet. And if we're being honest with ourselves, most of us do not get enough physical movement anyhow. So this practice of regularly consuming refined carbohydrates that lack nutrients actually leads to an impaired metabolism. An impaired metabolism affects our mitochondria inside our cells, which are responsible for generating the energy, or ATP, that your body needs to stay alive and thrive. This is the energy you need to read, walk, and even sleep. They're also responsible for apoptosis, or programmed cell death. And that's a fancy name for the process of turning over dead and damaged tissue in our body. Pretty important stuff, right? And it also helps regulate gene expression. So when the mitochondria are dysfunctional, not only will your energy reserve decrease, resulting in fatigue and brain fog, but the likelihood of developing degenerative diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and neurodegenerative diseases actually increases. And it doesn't stop there. Impaired metabolism leads to weight gain in a number of ways. So when your metabolism is not functioning properly, our bodies increase the rate at which glucose is stored as fat, and lipogenesis, the creation of new fat cells, in addition to a reduced ability to convert our stored body fat to energy. Thus, we become better at storing fat and making new fat cells, and worse at burning up fat for energy. It's also worth noting that fat cells interact with our endocrine system. Fat cells affect hormonal signals related to appetite and satiety, which is another way they can contribute to weight gain. And impaired metabolism can also affect our brain health. In the short term, studies have shown that hypoglycemia, or low blood sugar levels, significantly reduces short-term cognitive function in tests of memory and attention. In the long term, it is an instigator of age-related cognitive decline. Other signs of an impaired metabolism are difficulty getting rid of excess body fat, even when cutting calories, thyroid or adrenal dysfunction, metabolic syndrome markers like triglycerides or cholesterol being high, diabetes markers, generally feeling hungry, moody, fatigued, or fried too often in daily life. If any of these hit home, you're probably wondering by now, how do I fix an impaired metabolism? It actually starts with improving your mitochondrial function. And to do that, you have to burn more fat for energy. Therefore, consuming a diet low in net carbohydrates and high in healthy fats, which is exactly opposite of what our food pyramid is telling us to do, will allow your body to burn fat rather than glucose as it's primary source of fuel. This effect will actually optimize your mitochondrial function and therefore optimize your overall health. One tool to do so is through a ketogenic diet. And before we understand the ketogenic diet, we must first understand ketosis, the conditions that promote ketosis, and how our bodies beta oxidize or burn fatty acids for energy.
Hey, Marmar.
Yes.
This is Erin. So we're actually getting some feedback that we're having some static on your end and audio issues. So I think, and sorry, we apologize that we're experiencing these issues. You know, we try to plan as much as we can, but to help with this, I think we're going to go ahead and switch presenters. So we have a backup presenter, Cheryl, who I think we can go ahead and have her take over where you are, and we'll see if that kind of clears up some of those audio issues. And Cheryl, while you're getting set up, I will go ahead and read off your bio so everyone knows who you are. So while she's getting set up, I want to go ahead and introduce Cheryl Odell. She is the NHC at our Coos Bay, Oregon store, and she's been with Natural Grocers for over 4 years. Cheryl graduated from Bastyr University School of Natural Medicine in Kenmore, Washington, with a Master of Science in Nutrition. Cheryl's passion is working with community members on building lifestyles consistent with their individual goals and exemplifying health promoting behavior. So Cheryl, do we have you on? Do you want to check your audio real fast? I think it says you're muted, so you might need to unmute yourself. So I can see you, Cheryl.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to, I'm sharing the PowerPoint. Can you all see that?
It looks like it's just taking a second to come up. So one moment. All right, we're still waiting for it to come up. Okay, we should be good. So yes, you please feel free to go.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everybody for staying with us. So we just finished up on this slide talking about understanding ketosis. And in order to understand the ketogenic diet, we do need to understand what ketosis is, as well as the conditions that promote ketosis as well. And basically how our body is going to use fat or beta oxidized fat to be able to produce energy. So we're going to jump into a little biochemistry party. So if you take a look at how nutrients are going to enter into our energy producing cycle, or that Krebs cycle, you can see at the top you have glucose or sugar and triglycerides or fats, and how they enter that energy producing cycle. Just kidding, because that can be overwhelming, right? So we're going to just take a look at the basics of how our body is using fat and proteins as well as carbohydrates for energy. So as fatty acids enter that energy producing cycle, it enters at what is called acetyl-CoA. And then proteins and carbohydrates are going to enter as oxaloacetate. Now together they're going to enter that energy producing cycle called the Krebs cycle, which is going to happen in our mitochondria. And that's where our body is going to produce that energy. So where does ketosis come into this equation is that when we have fatty acids and producing acetyl-CoA, that excess acetyl-CoA is converted in the liver into ketones. So as the amount of acetyl-CoA exceeds oxaloacetate, so we have more fats than we have proteins or carbohydrates entering the system, we can actually produce ketones. And now that's why on a ketogenic diet, we are going to limit carbohydrates and proteins to a lesser extent on that ketogenic diet. Another factor is as we are getting carbohydrates in the diet, that also increases our insulin, and insulin is also going to block our ability to use fats for energy. So again, the reason why we want to minimize those carbohydrates on a ketogenic diet. And if we take a look at metabolism and kind of envision that like a campfire. So in fueling that fire, if we're using fat versus carbohydrates, that fire to fuel our energy sources. So fat is like that log that we're putting on the campfire. That log is going to be long duration, it's going to last a while, it's clean burning source of energy. Now, carbohydrate energy is like fueling a fire with sticks and twigs and paper. So it'll be quick. We'll have to keep feeding that fire. It tends to be a little bit more dirty, smoky, and you have more metabolic waste. So if you relate that to how our body is using that energy, so glucose doesn't engage our mitochondria, whereas fat burning does engage those mitochondria, those organelles in our cells that are going to actually help support that energy. And when we do that, we're going to not only help support making those mitochondria more efficient, we're also going to support creating new mitochondria as well. And that overall is going to be more supportive of optimal health. By supporting our mitochondria and helping fix our metabolism, the ketogenic diet has been shown to support healthy weight management as well. So improving our body's metabolic machinery by initiating ketosis helps us better rely on fat from the diet as well as from the body to produce ketones for energy. And studies show that a ketogenic diet supports healthy blood sugar, healthy blood lipid levels, healthy balanced cholesterol, all of which are going to support healthier metabolism. So beyond weight maintenance, ketones are also beneficial for cognition. And one way we can mimic ketosis is with supplementation of medium chain triglycerides. These are unique fatty acids that are directly transported to the liver where they can be used to create ketones for energy. And that's going to be a quick, easy source of energy that's going to be alternative to sugar. Also, because medium chain fatty acids produce ketones without the need to accomplish nutritional ketosis, medium chain fatty acid supplementation is also a useful tool in studying cognitive support with ketones. And as mentioned previously, people who experience reduced cognitive function during times of low blood sugar, right? So who hasn't experienced that? And in one study at Yale School of Medicine, subjects who were studied experiencing reduced cognitive function during low blood sugar saw these deficits of that low blood sugar erased when they supplemented with medium chain triglycerides. So this shows the benefits of ketones in the short term, but we can also support our cognition in the long term. And in healthy older adults, a low carbohydrate diet supported memory. And the higher the serum ketones, the better the memory score. But not only that, in adults with age-related cognitive decline, a ketogenic diet also supported memory. So far we have covered weight management and brain health, but what's on the forefront of our minds is immune health. And good nutrition is a key for immune system support. Excess sugar and carbohydrates can overload can interfere with your immune function. And in one study, again from Yale in 2019, showed that the way that the body burns fat to produce ketone bodies from food can fuel the immune system to support its function. And at Natural Grocers, we have a wonderful customer literature file on blood sugar and immune health that you can find in our stores, that you can get a hard copy of and read more details on how that can be supportive of immune health. So with all these benefits, keto is a popular diet right now, and there's definitely a lot of misinformation and overgeneralization. So to guide our customers to do this in a healthy way and be successful, Natural Grocers developed the Keto Reset program, which utilizes Mark Sisson's The Keto Reset Diet to guide us toward the end goal of metabolic flexibility. And all with the support of and expertise of our knowledgeable nutritional health coaches in each store. And we're going to do this in 3 easy steps. So we're going to start with metabolism reset and transitioning away from carbohydrate dependency, as well as normalizing our appetite hormones. And then in step 2, we're going to go into a keto reset, where we're going to hone in on our mitochondrial biogenesis benefits, and then ultimately metabolic flexibility. And so what is metabolic flexibility? That's when we're able to burn stored energy in the form of fat, as well as ketones, and not being dependent on regular high carbohydrate meals to sustain your energy, mood, and cognitive focus. So as you can see on the continuum at the bottom of this screen, that's going to be being able to switch between carbohydrates and fats as a fuel source for energy and optimal health. So currently on a standard American diet, if we're following traditional advice like the food pyramid, we're probably leaning more towards that carbohydrate dependency, the left side of this continuum. So we want to get away from that constant having to feed that fire of our metabolism, the highs and lows. We want to be able to move towards that right side where we can use either fat or carbohydrates for energy as needed. So in step 1, we're going to basically clean up the diet and kick that carb dependency and boost our fat burning machinery. And we're going to do this by limiting our carbohydrates to 50 to 100 grams a day. And doing this, what can be beneficial and help us to get to this point is simply ditching grains. So your wheat, rye, barley, your processed, like your crackers, your pastas, your breads, your cereals that are grain-based, as well as your sugars, whether it's added sugars or sugars in processed foods. We're also wanting to ditch those refined vegetable oils. So the vegetable oils that are highly processed, things like your sunflower, safflower, canola, soy oils, we're going to want to ditch those as well. And so we're going to replace those with nutrient-dense, high-fat, low-carb foods. And then we're going to also focus on some supportive lifestyle behaviors like dialing in on your sleep and implementing effective stress management techniques. And we're going to discuss a little bit more on this in week 2. So if you accomplish the 21-day metabolism reset alone, you're likely to transform your health for the rest of your life. So that in itself is going to be beneficial in overall health in the long term. And a really good place to start resetting your metabolism is with balancing your blood sugar. So outside of blood sugar balance conditions, we are specifically talking about just your day-to-day blood sugar balance, the effect of your meals throughout the day on how your body is responding to that meal. So again, that standard American diet food pyramid way of eating is going to look like something like a breakfast of refined carbohydrate cereals, so processed cereals, skim milk, milk that's had its a lot of its fats removed, maybe juice that's going to have all that fiber, some of those nutrients removed from that, as well as other stimulants like coffee. And so I think we've all experienced the highs and lows of that blood sugar high and then the crash that happens afterwards. This is happening because our body creates insulin to handle that quantity of sugar that we're getting from the diet. And to the extent that it raises, your body's going to respond as dramatically. It's trying to be protective because high blood sugar can cause damage to the body. And so what happens then is we get that blood sugar low, and we can constantly go from that high to low throughout the day, depending upon what our meal looks like, or the meals throughout the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So what this can do is it can increase our insulin as well as that fat storage. It can affect our mood and our ability to think and concentrate. And on the flip side, it can actually increase our stress hormones, cortisol, and also increase cravings. We may be fatigued and again, not be able to think clearly. And that's like having to constantly fuel the fire with that carbohydrate energy. So what we're looking for is ways to help balance that. Balancing each meal with different things that are going to stabilize that blood sugar, like proteins, fat, fiber, vitamins and minerals, things like foods that are less processed, like the example here, we've got eggs, spinach, cheese, berries, and drinks that are less stimulating, like maybe herbal or green tea. And I think that that can be appealing to most anybody, and it's delicious still. So it's just swapping out some of those different foods to better meet our body's needs. And you can see we don't have those blood sugar highs and lows. We have stable energy. We're not storing fat because we don't have more energy than what we need. And our stress hormones are balanced, our cravings are balanced, and we can think clearly. So in the first stage of resetting our metabolism, we're going to look at a diet that's going to provide whole, real foods, like maybe a primal paleo style eating, which is going to be not incorporating those grains and sugars like we mentioned earlier, and none of those refined, highly processed seed oils that we mentioned as well. And so grains, again, are going to be those even like rice, wheat, rye, barley, things like your cereals, your crackers, your bread. And so you can see here, about half your plate is going to be vegetables. You're incorporating proteins from like eggs, meat, fish, and then fats at each meal. Again, some good examples of that, some healthy fats would be the avocado, maybe some butter. It's not highly processed. And you still may be incorporating some starchy vegetables like your tubers, like your potatoes and yams, maybe some winter squash, root vegetables, as well as some fruit like those berries. And when we start to hone in on the ketogenic diet, we're just going to be tightening some of those restrictions. So we're going to be minimizing that category of starchy vegetables, the tubers, the winter squash, the root vegetables, and minimizing our fruits. Particularly those tropical fruits tend to be a little bit higher in sugar content. We can still sneak in some of those berries, but we also, if you can see here, we're still eating the same amount of vegetables, about half your plate. Again, the ones that aren't those starchy ones we talked about. And we're getting adequate protein from, again, eggs, meat, fish, and then we're swapping those carbohydrate nutrients, the starchy vegetables and the fruits, with some of those healthy fats. So healthy fats like avocados, olives, nuts and seeds, coconut, butter, ghee. So we're getting some of those really good quality fats there as well. And then once we've completed the metabolism reset, we're going to jump into keto reset. But first, we want to do a midterm exam before we jump in, just to make sure we're ready. And then when we are, if not, that's no big deal. You can stay in just kind of that paleo primal until we're ready and we can pass that midterm exam and then move on to the keto reset. But once we get there into the keto reset, we're going to, again, tighten those rules, and we're going to reduce our carbohydrate consumption to less than 50, as opposed to the 50 to 100 on the paleo primal. And then we're going to want to limit that protein, so we're getting enough but not excessive. And we're going to want to keep that to about 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. And that's going to help train your body to burn stored energy in the form of fat and ketones and help build that metabolic flexibility as well. And Natural Grocers has some other tools to help guide you in informing you on how to incorporate fats in a healthy way. And so a couple of those documents that you can find in our stores, as well as online at naturalgrocers.com, include a couple documents. The first one is Figuring Out Fats, and that's going to be a helpful tool in helping guide you in the right balance of fats to help support that balanced inflammatory response. So basically, balancing your omega-3s and your omega-6s in the diet. And a lot of that has to do with incorporating omega-3s, because our diet typically is high enough in omega-6s. We want to incorporate some of those other omega-3s to balance that through things like fish, seafood, a lot of beneficial fats there. And then the second document is Choosing the Best Fats and Oils for Cooking. So we want to make sure that we're using the right oils for the right purpose. So this document is really handy in going through different fats, their types, and whether they're appropriate for use in dressings or cooking, or what level of cooking in a good and healthy way. So part of that might look like, okay, olive oil is a great drizzling oil for salads and dressings on already cooked vegetables. And then things like avocado oil you could do for sauteing. And then avocado and coconut oil tend to be a little bit more useful in a little bit higher heat applications than maybe olive oil as well. So that'll help guide you in using the right fats for the right purpose. And then what happens after the keto reset? So you can definitely explore some long-term keto options. So once you become keto and fat adapted, you can consider going back to ketosis at any time in the future, or swapping between maybe that paleo primal diet, just kind of good, clean eating, and then maybe, again, giving yourself a boost of that kind of metabolism reset with some stints of keto. You can also experiment with intermittent fasting, and what that incorporates is basically you're extending the time between the last meal of one day and the time between the first meal of the next day. And so basically it may be a fast of about 14 up to 16 hours, and that'll help also with ketosis and supporting that as well. So you probably want to start incorporating this after definitely you're keto adapted, you feel like you've stabilized there, and then you want to try the next step in that. And so basically that intermittent fasting, you want to not be pushing yourself to push past hunger. You basically want to be eating at the moment that your body's telling you, okay, I'm hungry for my meal that next day. We have a really great customer literature file on intermittent fasting as well to get a little bit more details there, and definitely stay tuned for future classes to get a little bit more details there. So with all these benefits and great things that come with a ketogenic diet, are you ready to break free from carbohydrate dependency, experience healthy weight management, feel energized, and have sustained increased mental clarity and better stress management, and doing this all while being able to enjoy nutrient-dense and high-fat foods? If you are, join us for the rest of our 4-week Keto Reset program for support and success. But before we end, I want to give some important considerations of who the ketogenic diet may not be appropriate for and who may require medical or nutritional oversight. So those who are pregnant or breastfeeding, those children and teenagers, or those unless they have a therapeutic conditions under the guidance of a trained professional, those with impaired fat digestion or liver disease, those with adrenal fatigue, people trying to gain weight or having a difficult time keeping weight on, those with thyroid conditions or eating disorders, type 1 diabetics with uncontrolled blood sugar, as well as type 2 diabetics on insulin, as well as people taking prescription medications who should work with their doctor to monitor doses, since the ketogenic diet can cause significant shifts in body chemistry that may impact certain medications. We already talked about a couple resources, but we do have several resources available to you. More customer literature files, such as a customer literature file on the ketogenic diet, more customer literature files on fats, as well as specifically medium chain triglycerides, and again, support for sugar and immune health. And that you can also find online. But in our stores, we also have a customer literature file on intermittent fasting, as well as many books, including the Keto Reset Diet, which we are using for this program, and then other supportive books on the ketogenic diet as well. Thank you so much for joining us today for the first of the 4-week series of the Keto Reset Diet. It's been my pleasure to be able to present this class for you, and I'm going to give this back to Erin.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, for taking over in the middle there. And thank you to Marmar as well for the great introduction. I think it's safe to say we learned a lot from both of you today, and we really appreciate you kicking off week 1. Before we head to the Q&A, I just want to remind everyone that following the live class today, you also have the opportunity to attend one of our local community support groups. So these sessions are a great way to connect online with a nutritional health coach and a keto community, so you can expand on the information that's presented in today's class, further your health goals, and also support one another. So of note, while you signed up for reminders to attend the live class today, there is a separate sign up on our website that you must complete to attend one of our community support sessions following the class. So to make it easier for you, someone from our admin team will be dropping a link to that sign up page in the YouTube chat pane provided. So be on the lookout for that if you are interested in attending one of those support sessions and you haven't already signed up. Okay, now we're going to get to some questions from those of you at home. You guys have chatted in the chat pane and have asked some really thoughtful and great questions. So I'm excited to dig into those with everyone. To do so, we've got a brilliant panel for you who I'll go ahead and introduce right now. Coming back to join us is Marmar Atala. I think we got his audio fixed. So he's the NHC at our Columbia, Missouri store. We also have Cheryl Odell, who I read her bio a little bit earlier, and she's from our Coos Bay, Oregon store. And new, we've got Amber Lankford, who has been the NHC at our Longview, Texas store since it opened in 2018. Amber graduated from Texas Tech University with a bachelor's in nutritional sciences and dietetics in 2011, and she went on to work in group fitness for 2 years and specialized in weight loss for 4 years at a local center. And she also has a passion for creating fun recipes for any diet. So thank you, Marmar, Cheryl, and Amber for supporting this question panel. We'll go ahead and get to our first question. So obviously we've talked a lot about keto tonight and really how it's a diet based on lots of healthy fats. But I think this can also bring up a good question, and I think it's a question on a lot of people's minds is, won't eating all of this fat and cholesterol be bad for my heart? And is there negative effects on my cardiovascular health? So any thoughts on that one? So Cheryl's going to take this one first.
Yeah, so I think the number one thing to think is, are my fats quality, healthy sources of fat? So that list of fats that are less processed, more like their whole food counterparts. So things like the avocados, the olives, the nuts and seeds, and then less processed liquid oils like maybe the coconut, olive, avocado again, and your butter and ghee are all going to be good options, as well as fats from the diet like your fish oil, those kind of things.
Yeah, I think that's a great input to add there, focusing on those nutrient-dense whole food sources of healthy fat. And by doing so, you're automatically going to increase your omega-3 intake too, which you talked a little bit about in the class as well. Marmar, I think I saw your hand go up too. Feel free to chime in. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to add to Cheryl's point that, I mean, also there's a lot more, I think there's more recent research that shows that, you know, consuming healthy fats could be beneficial for the cardiovascular system in general and just overall body health. And I think that, you know, we're seeing more that avoiding the processed grains like we talked about in the class and the sugars is going to be the key to really achieving that optimal health and combining it with those healthy sources of fats, avoiding, you know, man-made fats and fats that are easily oxidized or damaged when exposed to heat. Things that we have in our like processed foods like canola oils and whatnot. So I think that's a key point to add as well.
Yeah, I think that's great information. So thanks for adding that input in there. Amber, any thoughts on that one? Just wanted to give you an opportunity. Well, hopefully
the final thing is just, you know, sorry. The final thing, you know, again, just finding the right fats for you, what's going to work for your body and what's going to be the great fit. Like Cheryl mentioned, we do have those great CLFs on different fat types. And I know for everybody, it's going to be a little bit different what's going to work the best in their diet. I know I saw some comments in the chat pane about, you know, maybe coconut oil didn't work for you or something like that. And so just finding that good, healthy fat, start with a list and mark them off as you go until you find the one that's the best for you.
Yeah, and I think that's also a great opportunity where, customers can work with you guys as nutritional health coaches, whether that be in the support groups or through your virtual health coaching sessions, which you offer for free, to really fine tune that and figure out, what types of fats work best for them. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for adding that input there. We'll go on to our next question, and this one's on intermittent fasting, and I want to throw this one out to Marmar as well, because I know intermittent fasting is a topic that you love. So what about the relationship of starting keto and intermittent fasting? We touched on it a little bit, but do you have any more to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, Erin. I think, that both, it almost sounds like you're doing two different diets, which could be overwhelming for some people, but I think really the point here is to start using more fat for energy. And I think that's the key point there. And so I think intermittent fasting could be supportive of somebody starting on a ketogenic diet, in the sense that, and for those of you who don't know what fasting is or are confused about that, it's just a period of time where you basically have no calories, maybe plain like black coffee or tea. So that actually, again, is supportive because we don't have any insulin release, like Cheryl mentioned in her explanation about ketosis. So if you're really trying to get into ketosis, that could be, I think that could complement the process of actually getting into it. I will recommend starting slow, maybe just pushing the breakfast out a couple hours, kind of seeing how you feel. Of course, make sure you hydrate. But I think if you can sustain, at least 14, some research, maybe at least 16 hours of fasting could actually be a good indication that you're getting into that sort of ketogenic state and able to really use your own body fat for fuel. So I think they're definitely, they complement each other. That answers the question.
Yeah, I love all that information you provided, and also that note of just starting slow, letting your body get its feet wet with all things metabolism reset and also keto as well. And, picking a smaller period of time at first, maybe, delaying breakfast a little bit. And I love Mark Sisson's note when he talks about eating when hunger ensues naturally. So I love that. Cheryl or Amber, any thoughts on intermittent fasting that you wanted to add? Go ahead, Amber.
I did just want to add, it doesn't necessarily have to be breakfast that you do. I know for me, skipping breakfast and moving it out that way is the best way. And I really just listen to my body. When I'm hungry is when I eat. And that tells me a lot about what's going on. But I know for like my sister, she's a nighttime snacker. So if she doesn't go ahead and skip that meal and, kind of stop her eating, then it can send her off the ledge and she can just go to town and want everything. So having that breakfast in the morning, getting her day started, having her lunch, and then starting her intermittent fasting seems to work really well for her. So there's a lot of great options where that goes.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely doing what works best with your body. And you might have to experiment a little bit to figure out what does work best. Cheryl, any thoughts you wanted to add?
Yeah, so like Amber said, I mean, everybody's body is different and it has to do with listening to the body. Again, like Marmar said, those fats, as you're increasing the fats, they're going to help you feel more full and satisfied and be able to go a little bit longer periods between meals. And I know for me personally, I have struggled in the past with doing like a 24-hour fast, but I'm able to, when I'm getting those fats in the diet, you could start with maybe, again, small steps of maybe a 12-hour fast, then extending that to maybe when you're good there to maybe 14 and then maybe to 16 and go from there.
Awesome. Well, that was a great little mini introduction to intermittent fasting. We're definitely going to talk a lot more about that too in week 2. So make sure you join us for that. But we're going to go ahead and move along because I want to make sure that we get to all of your questions if we can this evening. So we got a few questions regarding vegan and vegetarian diets. And also pescatarian as well. So can a keto diet be and also the metabolism reset. Can those diets both be accomplished if you are a vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian? Cheryl, go ahead.
Yeah, there are ways to incorporate all of those. Of course, it's going to be easier when you are an omnivore because you have a lot more different types of foods you can incorporate. And the biggest issue or the hardest hurdle to get past is going to be that protein content in a diet, especially more restrictive like a vegan diet. So you might find that, so if you're adding some of those whole food sources of proteins, some of them might be lower in protein, like your avocados, nuts and seeds, maybe some nutritional yeast. Hemp seeds are a really great option there as well. But you might also end up having to rely a little bit more on some of your plant-based protein powders. And there are keto-specific plant-based protein powders that you can use in order to help you get specifically into that ketogenic diet.
Yeah, and I think variety is a good point to add in there too. Just making sure you're getting a variety of different types of foods, more of those protein-rich foods to make sure you're getting all of those amino acids. All right, Marmar, you have thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I just, of course, I agree with Cheryl. I think you almost like have to add a protein powder to get enough. One trick I learned is, of course, like all the amino acids are essential, and not all of them, but you know what I mean? Like just getting enough in the diet. And I think that leucine is one of the key ones, especially to maintain that skeletal muscle, which is, of course, pretty important for our function every day. So you can actually improve your quality of your protein shake if you add leucine powder. And we do have it from a vegetarian source. So if you're looking for that, or especially if you exercise or anything like that, I think it's a great way to add it in. I know there's more research on comparing. I don't want to go too much into that rabbit hole, but I just want to make sure that people understand that there's a difference between actually consuming whey protein and how much amino acids you get from that. And some of the companies now add more amino acids to fortify it. So like Vega Sports and usually more sport proteins would actually be, but I think anybody can use those as a source. And I just wanted to highlight that and make sure you are tracking your calories, which is, I think, key to make sure you're not consuming too many carbohydrates.
Yeah, and we'll talk all about tracking and why that's important in week 2. And I think you guys just provided a lot of great ideas and suggestions. And there's tips and tricks and different ways that you can make the ketogenic diet work for you, regardless of what dietary pattern you're following. And I think also those support group sessions are going to be a great time for you to kind of dive into those questions as well. And Marmar, you talked a little bit about exercise in there and the benefits of leucine and for helping to maintain muscle mass. So we did get an exercise question that came in. This one was, can you talk about people that do a lot of fitness? So what are some considerations for individuals who exercise a lot and would like to try keto?
I assume by a lot of fitness, they mean like longer duration maybe, or more intense. So I'm just going to take that into consideration. And I think for those individuals, myself being one of them, I did notice that a lot of obviously like that kind of intensity requires carbohydrates because you want that quick source of energy. And again, the point here is not, that's why we talk about how different everybody is and their goals. So knowing your goal is pretty important. So there's a few things you can do. I would say, like, for someone like that, their carbohydrate allowance would probably be a little bit on the higher side. There's a lot of people that could get away even consuming 50, maybe just slightly more, and still maintain ketosis. Now, the trick to that is actually consuming those carbohydrates around the workout time, because it's like, you're using that energy when you need it, and then kind of, again, going back to mostly being low carb or keto if you go keto. But I mean, again, on the metabolism reset, you can consume somewhere between 50 to 100 grams of carbs. And that just might be something that works better for you, depending on if you're performance driven and not quite, looking for other things. But again, and that's part of also, back to the intermittent fasting, I think incorporating that like once a week, maybe on days you don't work out, could also give you the opportunity to still reap the benefits of being metabolically flexible without losing that performance benefits of having carbohydrates around that time of the workout. That would be my suggestion there.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of great points in there too, and I think Amber wants to chime in as well, so go for it.
So a lot of the times what I tend to find when I'm transitioning into keto, it is very hard for me to work out. I can't do nearly the amount I can until I get into that fat adapted state. So that transition period can be really rough if you're trying to do like a full on workout or anything like that, especially a lot of cardio is really where I really notice. Now, I will say when I weight train, while I'm transitioning and stuff, I still really feel the weights. I mean, they feel like they're doing so much for me. They feel, super intense and everything like that. And then once I get transitioned into that fat burning stage and my body has adapted, I can go and do my full workouts with usually very mild tweaks to my eating habits.
Yeah, and I appreciate you adding your personal experience in there. I think that's super helpful. And just that reminder that, yeah, when you're first starting out on keto, you want to give your body some time to adjust and adapt. And that might mean scaling back on your workouts a little bit. Scale back on that intensity, because a lot of the times that higher intensity work relies on a lot of that glucose. And we're, not taking that in anymore. We're depleting our stored glucose levels, and we're also trying to transition to using fat for fuel. So we're just not very good at using energy quite yet. So it's just good to kind of scale back in the beginning, and just give your body some time. And we'll talk a lot more about exercise in I think week 2, I believe. And they'll talk a little bit more about electrolytes and other supplements that you can consider to provide that additional support. All right, so I think we've got time for one more question. Time just flew this evening. So this one's, we had talked about the slides where people, Cheryl, you had mentioned the slide where people having certain conditions might need to recruit some additional support if they're wanting to go keto. So this question kind of hits on that. So can people with low thyroid do keto, and what about people without a gallbladder? So maybe we'll start with the thyroid question first.
Yeah, definitely checking with your primary care physician, a qualified health professional, and making sure that you're having that guidance so that everything's being managed and stable, so that you're not overtaxing your system, definitely would be a good idea.
Good, thank you for that. And then Marma or Amber, did you want to touch on the gallbladder question? Amber, go ahead.
I know for a lot of people with gallbladders who have been removed, one, you probably already know if you're a little bit sensitive to fat, so you might already know that about yourself. But for a lot of people, what it helps to do is to just kind of split that fat up throughout the day. Instead of doing large amounts of it at every meal, maybe doing smaller amounts of snacks throughout the day to still get that good quality fat into your diet and get it in as those calories, but not overwhelming how much your body has to process at once.
Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation. Marmar, any last minute thoughts on either of those?
Yeah, I think that that's definitely a good point that Ember mentioned on splitting up your fats and maybe even thinking about the types of fats you're consuming. Again, that kind of goes back to the resources that we have and knowing and kind of experimenting with different things, but also you can take some supplements to help support fat digestion. And I think that's a key point for people with no gallbladder. Maybe things like ox bile or specifically lipase, for fat digestion and enzyme supplements. So I think those are two supportive supplements that could help, especially when you're starting to incorporate more fats into your diet and really just taking it slow. Those are the two key points. And when we talk about make sure you ask your doctor first, I think that still applies to a lot of those conditions, and that's why we want you to be careful and not taking any risk. But we're also, again, we're not saying don't do it. It's just more being careful and really being mindful of how your body reacts to stuff, and your doctor will probably have a better idea, hopefully, about that. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your input and for that really amazing Q&A session. We are about out of time this evening. We apologize if we weren't able to get to your question this evening, but just more of an encouragement to join us next week for our second Keto Reset class, and we'll be able to dive into more information and hopefully answer more of your questions. And also if you join in on those community support groups, you can also get your questions answered there. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I know we all learned a lot. Thank you to Marmar and Cheryl for helping to kick off week 1 and teaching us all about the metabolism and keto reset. And thank you to Amber for helping us to answer questions. Just a reminder, don't forget to join us next Wednesday, January 27th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 7 p.m. Central Time for week 2 of our Keto Reset live class series. Have a great rest of your evening, everyone, and we will see you next week.